Guess this is goodbye.
Ugh, that stupid law. This isn't fair.
We love Disney movies, but we gotta admit that some of their endings are a little cringeworthy. The Little Mermaid and Cinderella don't seem quite so romantic after you've grown up. But whether it's a princess giving up her family to marry a guy she hardly knows, or a movie not answering any of our burning questions, we have some opinions.
Wally! Wally! Wally!
We love Frozen, but there are a couple things about the ending that leave us a little shocked. Hans did a complete 180 on Anna after acting like her dream guy.
Oh, Anna. If only there was someone out there who loved you.
We know he was the secret villain, but it really came out of nowhere. Anna, being the one to say to Hans, "You know this isn't for me," might have been a more powerful way for Anna to take control of her destiny. And now for Elsa. After she returns to Arendelle, the villagers seem more than happy to take her back. But would you have been so willing to trust a queen who has barely made public appearances and who can turn everything to ice if she loses control? We know by now that Elsa is a good person, but the villagers hardly got to see that. We also love Moana, but Maui's ending could have been a bit better. His hook gets destroyed after he finally realizes that helping Moana and making up for his mistakes is more important than his all-powerful weapon. But just after he realizes this and might actually change for the better, he gets a brand new hook. We're happy he's still friends with Moana and seems to use his powers more responsibly by the end of the movie, but he still should have lost his hook for good. He wasn't even the one who put Te-Fiti's heart back. It was Moana. For a movie with such a headstrong, unique main character, how did Brave's ending end up being a little boring? Everything we thought would happen did, and Merida spent the whole movie trying not to get married, so she didn't. And by the end of the movie, Merida just goes right back to her usual ways, but with a little less hatred for her mother.
I'm sorry. This is all my fault.
We're definitely not saying she should have gotten married, but there's not a whole lot of growth or change here for a story about female empowerment. Merida deserves a sequel so we can get a better look at this incredible character. Penelope deciding to ditch Ralph in Ralph Breaks the Internet for a new life in Slaughter Race is super sad and also a bit strange.
It's gonna be great. Found your dream game.
Yeah, I did.
Does she really want to spend her time in a polluted, crime-ridden video game world? To each their own, but there's not a whole lot of beauty to enjoy or even new friends to make other than Shank and her crew. But at least Penelope didn't go turbo and can always return to her game if Slaughter Race also gets too boring. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of The Little Mermaid. Ariel makes a deal with Ursula, follows Prince Eric onto land, fights for his love, and then finally her father grants her legs so she could marry the prince of her dreams. Except, she hardly knows him. And she's basically forced to live a human life now. Did she ever think to herself, what if it doesn't work out? Since there are sequels, we know things end up just fine, but it seems like Ariel is quite the risk taker. There's a pretty depressing moment at the end of Beauty and the Beast. After many years trapped as furniture, the Beast's staff finally turns back into humans after the curse is broken.
Mama!
But we don't get to see how they'll have to deal with their messy lives after being gone for so long. And they also go right back to being staff in a house they were trapped in for years. Does that seem fair? It beats being a clock or a candle, but we sure hope the Beast is generous with paid vacation days. The ending to Tarzan is a bit of a downer. First, Clayton is hanged by the neck in some vines, which seems a bit dark for a Disney movie. But then Jane decides to stay with Tarzan, a human raised by gorillas that grew up in the wild and live with him on an island. We imagine them setting off somewhere and starting a nature conservatory, but apparently living in trees with gorillas is just as good of an option. We like to think they met somewhere in the middle and are out there living a nature-friendly but still human life. Most of Aladdin is about a poor boy pretending he's a prince so he can get out of the slums and marry Princess Jasmine.
Do I know you?
No. No.
And it all builds up to Jasmine's father, the Sultan, realizing he can just change the law and that his daughter doesn't have to marry a prince after all. Could you imagine what the movie would have been like if Aladdin had tried wooing Jasmine as himself while convincing the Sultan to let him, a commoner, marry the princess? We're not saying we didn't enjoy the movie as it is, but the Sultan sooner realizing he should just change the law would have saved everyone a whole lot of trouble. Just when you think there's an actual chance that the Hunchback of Notre Dame's Quasimodo could end up with Esmeralda, she falls in love with a guard named Phoebus, and Quasimodo is forced to watch them be happy as a couple. He leaves the cathedral at the end and is seemingly celebrated for being a hero, but it's sad that he even had to become a hero for people to accept him. Plus, when Quasimodo and Esmeralda leave the cathedral for the streets of Paris are looking pretty spotless. Who had time to clean up all that mess?
Wait, stop! I want to get off!
The ending of Inside Out is lovely and realistic, but it makes us sad knowing that now Riley's days as a happy, carefree kid are really over. Now sadness can affect her core emotions just as much as joy, and there will be lots of challenges in her life. Thankfully, she has a great team working hard in her brain, but knowing she's going to face a lot of struggles and that they happen to all of us is what makes the film's hopeful ending so bittersweet.
He loved you, Mama Coco. Your papa loved you so much.
Okay, so Coco is absolutely gorgeous and tugs on your heartstrings, but maybe just a little too much. After Miguel's adventures in the afterlife, he returns to the living world, and we know he won't see all the friends and family he met until it's time to move on. Celebrating Dia de los Muertos isn't quite the same as actually traveling to the land of the departed. It's a bit depressing to think about them being separated for Miguel's whole life, but at least there's some bittersweetness in knowing he'll see Hector and the others again eventually. As Woody and Bo Peep share a bittersweet goodbye at the end of Toy Story 4, Woody decides that it's just too hard to leave Bo.
Bonnie, we'll be okay.
After Buzz tells Woody that Bonnie will be okay even without him, he decides to stay with Bo instead of returning home with his friends. He even gives his sheriff badge to Jessie. While we love to see Woody growing, we can't help but hate that all our favorite toys are going to be split up. What does this mean for any future Toy Story movies? Will the toys ever reunite? Our favorite animated robot movie, WALL-E, has a beautiful ending.
Wally! Wally!
If you don't think about it too hard. Let's face it, the damage done to Earth is pretty terrible and it's gonna take a lot to fix. Are the people on the Axiom really going to be able to do it? They can barely walk after all. We're hopeful and happy that robots and humans have found a way to work together, but it's going to take a lot of working out and many years for everyone to be up to the challenge. When you think about it, the ending of Hercules is kind of like The Little Mermaid and Cinderella. After spending the entirety of the movie trying to get back to Olympus, Hercules gives it all up to rescue Meg from the underworld and stay on Earth with her. We're all for true love, but after Meg tricked him and worked against him for the whole movie, you'd hope he'd think a bit more about giving it all up for her. But Disney really likes to have true love win, even if it's fighting against logic. The ending to Ferdinand is pretty great if you don't think about it too much. Ferdinand teaches us all that violence isn't the answer when he spares Primero, and in return, Ferdinand himself gets spared and is finally able to return to life with Nina. Except so are all these other animals.
I missed you, dog. Well, I didn't miss you. Not even a little bit.
Nina and her dad now have 5 bulls to take care of, and let's not forget the goat and hedgehogs, which thankfully take up less space. It's a good thing Nina's dad has those open fields, but things are still going to get pretty messy with 5 bulls roaming around. Cinderella might be the original princess movie that most people think of when it comes to Prince Charmings and happily ever afters, but it had a pretty terrible ending. The prince tries a glass slipper on a bunch of women and immediately marries Cinderella after it fits her.
Madam, my orders were every maiden.
Sure, Cinderella got out from under her stepmother's roof, and the prince got a pretty new bride, but Cinderella definitely isn't the fairy tale love we all thought it was when we were kids. Honestly, who can take care of 101 Dalmatians? We were all happy when the original puppies escaped from the evil Cruella de Vil and brought 99 more puppies with them. But now Roger and Anita are supposed to take care of all of them? That's a lot of mouths to feed, and even the best dog owner wouldn't have over 100 dogs. We're all for the canine family sticking together, but we kind of hope Roger and Anita found some really nice friends to adopt some of these puppies. And that they visit often, of course. Chicken Little isn't the most celebrated Disney flick, but it does have its fun and wild moments.
But that means...
Yes, I know. The sky is falling.
However, the ending with Foxy Loxy isn't one of them. She gets zapped and turned into a simple-minded Southern belle, and just because runt of the litter falls for her, they decide to keep her that way? Foxy Loxy doesn't even get any say in it. The effects were only temporary, and Foxy Loxy goes back to normal, and maybe gets a bit nicer on her own eventually. The ending of Monsters, Inc. is probably the only time we cried watching a movie about colorful monsters. Watching Boo open and close the door looking for Sully after he's left her behind is so heart-wrenching. Thankfully, Sully and Mike figure out how to fix the door, but when he gets back, we hear "Kitty?" and then get no answer. It's about time we finally get the sequel, Disney.
That was a close one. They're almost ready now, Dumbo. Don't forget to wave that flag.
Dumbo is our pick for most depressing ending to a Disney movie. Knowing what we know now about how terrible circuses are for animals, the ending of Dumbo doesn't seem like a very happy one at all. Sure, Dumbo escapes bullying and finally becomes the star of the show, but he's an elephant in captivity who will probably have to perform for the rest of his life. It might not have been a problem when the movie came out in 1941, but watching Dumbo now isn't such a happy experience. Dumbo and all captive animals deserve better. Which of these Disney endings was your least favorite? Are there any you still absolutely love? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.